Welcome students, hello and welcome to the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Open University. I am Dr. Mohammad Sarosh Ahmed. Today we are going to learn about the Neuro Musculo-Skeletal system. For this, we will be understanding the human structure and the function. This is a foundation for effective hospital and healthcare management. Let's learn what we are going to do today. By the end of the session, you will be able to describe the anatomy and physiology of nervous, muscular and skeletal system. You will be able to understand the nerve signals, reflexes, muscle contraction and postures. You will be able to recognize the role of bones and the joints in the movements. You will be able to relate the body systems to hospital ergonomics and the planning. Okay, we'll begin with the first part of the three that we have, the nervous system. Yes, we have the central nervous system, which includes the brain and the spinal cord. You can see the brain, it is beautiful, marvelous organ. And then we have the peripheral nervous system, that is the cranial and the spinal nerves. An adjuvant to it, to supplement the activities, we also have a autonomic nervous system, also called sympathetic and parasympathetic system. These are very crucial for fight and flight and other activities of human body. Imagine there is a tiger running towards you and your body, the sympathetic system especially, activates at that time and you need to run away from there, right? So you require a lot of blood being pumped out from the heart so that your muscles get enough oxygen, to enough ATPs to run faster, isn't it? So this is how the sympathetic nervous system helps you in fight and flight. Same way, the parasympathetic system helps you in rest and digest. You can see in this image wherein you have the brain, you have the extension of the brain down, that is the spinal cord, and then you have the peripheral nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. Here with the mouse, I will try to show you all the peripheral. This is the autonomic nervous system, this is the parasympathetic, and this is sympathetic nervous system. To all the important organs, it takes control involuntary. Now let's see the anatomy of the brain. To learn about the nervous system, you need to know the anatomy. Okay, the anatomy of the brain has mainly three structures. One is cerebrum, cerebellum, and the brainstem. Cerebrum is important for thought, movement, and judgment. You have then cerebellum, which helps you balance and coordinate the movements and postures. Then you have the brainstem, very critical structure in brain, which controls vital centers for breathing and heart rate. So these are, if you see the diagram, we have the cerebrum, the brainstem, and the cerebellum. Yes, and the cerebrum also has several parts, such as you have the frontal lobes in the front, and then you have the parietal lobes and the temporal lobes, and the back side you have the occipital lobes. Okay, then we have the cerebellum at the bottom and the brainstem. Let's now move towards the nervous extensions which we have from the brain and spinal cord, which are called the cranial and the spinal nerves. The cranial nerves are 12 in number and they take care of all the function of the neck and head and neck. So if you can imagine, there's a facial nerve which is one of the cranial nerves, which has all the innervation, just like a hand which is expanded, where you can control different facial muscles and which is allowing to make the expressions of happiness or sadness, and also the swallowing and different important functions. Same way, we have the spinal nerves from the spinal cord, arising the 31 spinal nerves, which are helping you daily to sense and for the movements. So this, if you can see the diagram, you have a brain, you have cranial nerves in the top, then followed by the spinal nerves. So how many cranial nerves do we have? Yes, 12 and 31 spinal nerves. Then you have very important survival skill that inbuilt we have is a reflex arc, which is the automatic response. When you touch an unknown object, or if you touch an object which is very hot, and it just immediately on touching the receptors here sense it and gives the signal immediately to the spinal cord and the reflex arc, and the effector mechanism pulls, and all these muscles makes you pull it out. So this is the automatic response or the reflex arc, which is really critical for human survival and safety. So this is a part of a nervous system. This is the example. If you can see the photo, you can have immediately you got to really remove this finger from this hot object, isn't it? The candle in here, and then this movement, the jerk, the nerves does not go to the brain as such. It just immediately goes to the spinal cord and takes a decision immediately, and you are safe from that danger. Right? Now, after learning the anatomy and the reflex arc, we're going to learn about the physiology of nerve stimulus. Okay, the nerve is the basic unit of the brain. Okay, it's called a neuron, and the nervous system, the basic cell is neuron. You have the cell body followed by the axon, and you have the dendrites. Okay, so then one nerve cell, that is neuron, and another neuron is communicating with each other through synapses. Okay, they are the connecting and exchanging the electrochemical information which the brain is passing down to the muscles and the bones, and thereby you're taking that action. So neuron, the basic unit, and you have the impulse transmission via electrochemical signals. Let's learn about the muscular system now. We have learned about nervous. Now we are moving towards the muscles and the muscular system. Over 600 muscles are there in the human body. Very essential for every movement, right? And apart from movement, the muscles allows us for maintaining a posture, for heat production, and for protection. It works in coordination, amazing coordination with the skeletal muscle. And we need to also now learn about what are the types of muscles. One type, important one, is the cardiac muscle, which are involuntary. It is beating on its own. You are not able to control it. You cannot stop it. You cannot ask it to stop beating, right? It is involuntary, that's why. So these are special muscles which are called the cardiac muscles. Then we have skeletal muscles, which are most commonly seen in all that is visible here, the biceps. These muscles are skeletal muscles. And then the smooth muscles are again involuntary, wherein the digestion, the intestinal system is all lined by smooth muscles, which helps in the contraction of the intestines and helps in digestion and defecation. The skeletal muscle is, like I said, it is under your control. It is thereby called involuntary muscle, voluntary action muscles. Okay, so three types of muscles. One is cardiac, followed by skeletal, and the smooth muscles. Which one is involuntary? Yes, the cardiac and the smooth. Which one is voluntary? The skeletal muscle. Yeah. So let us now move to the physiology of a muscle contraction. Very interesting. If you take a muscle and look it under a microscope, the cells involved in the muscle, the type of fibers of muscles, you can see like actin and myosin fibers interacting with each other and helping in either contracting and relaxing. Just remember, it's very simple. Whenever there is a stimulus, nervous stimulus received by a muscle, it acts either by contraction or relaxation. And this way, how does it happen? It requires some energy, doesn't it? For this energy, what we have is ATP. That is the body's currency. So ATP is adenosine triphosphate, wherein this energy is used by these muscle fibers and act as a contraction and relaxation. Thereby the entire muscle acts in unison, and you are able to make that movement or maintain a posture in a particular way. All right. Yes. So now you can also let's learn more about how do we maintain a posture. Very interesting phenomena. A low level sustained muscle contraction is called a tone, T-O-N-E. Okay, now when I'm seated here in this chair, all my muscles are actually in motion. They are in low level sustained muscle contraction to keep me in one place. If you're walking, again you have a certain tone wherein your posture is maintained. Okay, you either loop or stoop or you be straight. So all these muscles are acting and making you in that particular posture. Very important to know that muscles or muscular system along with the nervous and the skeletal system is helping you in a posture maintenance. Okay, and this thereby is maintaining the balance. You're able to walk because of this, you're able to run and not fall because of this. The maintenance of posture in coordinated activities are happening because of this. Whereas poor posture can lead to fatigue and injuries. This is the learning that you need to know, where you have a knowledge of muscle, the posture and the nervous system. Thereby you can understand wrong posture. Just imagine you're driving a car and then you have just halted somewhere and you're putting your hand behind to pick some bag or something, and suddenly you have a catch, right? You have a catch, there's a fatigue, discomfort. That's the abnormal positioning of the muscle which has led to that. So knowing all the muscles, the physiology of it, the anatomy of it really helps you which posture a patient should be put in. A patient may be anesthetized, he doesn't know how to be placed. You would be the one, for example, to decide on the posture for some time, where you're there and you need to decide at this point, and thereby preventing fatigue and injuries to the patient. Now let us, after learning about the nervous system and the muscular system, the third and the last part of today's class is skeletal system. Very, very interesting. You might have seen in movies, in museums, in your college, the skeleton will put, right? So a skeleton, a central skeleton we have, and which is called axial skeleton, and another one is called appendicular skeleton, which is the limbs and the girdles. Okay, how many bones do we have? Yes, it is 206 bones. Imagine the movie. Do you remember the movie Munna Bhai MBBS, wherein he funnily says, the Munna Bhai tells to Circuit, do you know we have 206 bones and we never thought about it? So yes, it is 206 bones. All right. So we have the axial skeleton, which has the skull, the spine and the rib cage, and then you have the appendicular skeleton, which are the limbs and the girdles. Okay, now let us have in detail the different types of bones in our body. We're talking about the long bones, that is in the leg, for example the femur. Then in the upper limb, like the humerus, the bone that you can see, which you cannot see though, but which is inside here, which is making up your arm, is humerus. And this is a classic example of long bones. And then you have the femur, which is the thigh bone, which you have in the thigh, which is giving a structure around which beautifully the muscles are placed and you are able to make the movements. So that is a good example of long bones. Then we'll talk about the short bones. Okay, just if you can see the wrist joint, you have small bones here placed very beautifully in unison together. These are called the carpal bones. Similarly, in your ankle or the leg, there we call the small bones called tarsals. Okay, so these are very important. So you might have heard about CTS or carpal tunnel syndrome. There's some orthopedician might have diagnosed, or you might have seen some case sheets, gone through it and saw CTS being written. That's nothing but carpal tunnel syndrome. That means within the carpal bones there are vessels and nerves passing through it, and if it gets compressed, the nerves give out symptoms, that is pain, form of pain. So because of the bones or carpal bones or small bones around the nerve which is compressing, it is leading to a syndrome, with a problem, a medical condition called carpal tunnel syndrome. Unless you relieve this stress, you separate the carpus and remove or make some space there, this won't get subsided. Okay, so this is example of short bones. Then you have the flat bones, where that is the skull and the sternum. Okay, the skull is made of several flat bones. Okay, and the sternum as well. Sternum is a bone, okay, on the chest that you have, okay, which holds on all the ribs. It's a very important bone again. It is the bone which takes all the pressure during the CPR administration when you try to save a life. Okay, you put your hands on palms on the sternum there, the central part of the chest. Okay, and then there's some bones which are irregularly shaped, okay, that are example vertebrae, the bones of the spinal cord. Just around the spinal cord we have bones to protect it, and also for us to give a straight posture or bend down. Okay, together several vertebrae are put in place, and but the bone shape is irregular, so it is called a irregular bone. Next one is a sesamoid bone. Example is a patella. Have you heard about this? Okay, if you haven't also, it's okay. The knee joint has a patella, wherein the muscle above the knee joints, okay, muscle above the knee joint has a tendon, and the end of the tendon, within the tendon is a ossified bone or ossified cartilage which turned into a bone. Okay, it's called sesamoid bone. A bone within the tendon, example patella, is a sesamoid bone. All right, with that we'll now move into the physiology of bones and joints. Bones are living tissues with vascular supply. Okay, this many of them don't know this, but it is the place where entire blood and components of bloods are being produced. Okay, so bone marrow, have you heard about that? Yes, it's the spaces in the bone ends, especially the long bones that we have just discussed. Do you remember what are the long bones? Yes, for example, the humerus and the femur, remember? So all these have like bone marrow, where and the blood supply, wherein new red blood cells, new white blood cells are produced, okay, and released into the circulation. So bones are living tissues with vascular supplies. Then the joints, like coming to joints, joints are something which really permits movements. There are different types of joints. The fixed joints which no movements, the slightly movable joints, and the freely movable joints. Okay, so here are some of the examples of the joints. There are some pivot joints, the skull and the vertebra we have, okay, the first vertebra, and then we have the hip joint, the knee joint, classic, like limited movements, not full movements, it just have limited movement. And then we have some wrist joint with free movements, or this fingers which have the free movements. Okay, all right, metacarpals and the, okay, all these are very interesting and fascinating, and allowing us to make the movements and do several different kinds of function. Maybe tailoring requires several functions, typing requires certain movements, and these all are by the joints which are right there in the anatomy of the hands. Now let us learn about something about the synovial fluid as well. Synovial fluid reduces friction. It's really important. For example, you have the two bones in the knee joint, wherein you have a cavity which is filled by synovial fluid, which is extremely essential to reduce the wear and tear of the two bones. If that isn't there, what happens? There would be friction. The bones would be rubbing towards each other, and there will be loss of the bone, and this movement is restricted. And that is how what really happens in osteoarthritis of knee joints, wherein elder persons are not able to walk properly. The movement starts becoming even more restricted day by day because of the synovial fluid being lost, and the joints becoming rigid, and the bones becoming very fragile, easy to break because of the less calcium and less calcium in the body. All right, So this is the photo I would like to show. If you could see this, the two joints filled with the example I have just showing here in a pink color, that is a synovial fluid, and it is enclosed in a synovial membrane. That is how two joints are fluidly moving and helping us in making that movement. Okay, let's further this movements of bones and joints. It's a bit tricky one. Let's try to make it simple. This is a function called flexion and extension. For example, if you can see here, the leg, okay, or the hand, for example, the joints, this is the elbow joint, and you have these two bones, and when these joints are coming, in this joint the bones are coming together, closer together, it's called flexion, and when it's go farther, it's called extension. You can see the angle becoming more in extension, and this action is called flexion. Okay, so when someone says flex his hand, that means close his hand. Okay, extend his hand means extension is opening the hand. So next, abduction and adduction. ABDUCTION is abduction, which is placing this hand away from the body. Okay, if I want to perform this movement, I would take my hand away from my body, that is abduction. And if this opposite way, when I make the body part closer to my body, center midline of the body, it is adding to it, right? So it is adduction, ADDUCTION. Okay, abduction and adduction. You can see in this photo, if you can, that is a movement towards the body is adduction, ADD, away from the body is abduction. All right, next action we are going to learn about is rotation, right and left rotation, and then circumduction. Circumduction is a more freer rotation wherein you can perform flexion, extension and rotation at the same time. That kind of a freedom is limited only for a few joints, and that's really helped us human beings, okay, reach where we are now because of this kind of movements of the bones and joints, isn't it? Yes. So here you can see the photo, or if you can see the photo, this is, yes. The next movement we'll be learning about is pronation and supination. Pronation is just like, imagine you are putting your hand to bless someone. Someone is trying to stretch the feet and you're just blessing that someone. That would be called pronation, P like a pronation. And when you turn it around, this action is called supination. All right. So pronation, supination. And we have also the eversion and the inversion, wherein the joints move towards, like inside is inversion, outside is eversion. Inside inversion, outside eversion. Now let's summarize what we have learned so far. Okay, so we have the nervous system which controls the actions. All right, so now we have learned about nervous system, wherein we saw the brain, the extension of brain as a spinal cord, and the nerves coming from the brain and the spinal cord, cranial nerves and the spinal nerves, isn't it? From there, we also saw about the systems, the central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, and the autonomous nervous system. All these three systems help us in maintaining the internal part of the body and helps us in taking all the actions we are taking today. Then to take the action, we are learning about the muscles and the skeleton which is required. So skeletal system include all the bones, and then the muscular system includes about more than 600 muscles, and this in unison are helping us in making the movements, day-to-day movements, isn't it? So now that we have understood all the movements of all the joints as well as the anatomy of nervous system, muscular and skeletal system, you will be able to adapt this knowledge and plan out how a hospital, the ward can be placed and what movements it's possible. For example, in neurological department, you would see many patients in particular position being placed, and doctor would come and just check for the tone of the muscle, check for the reflexes by, like, for example, like pinching and see whether the pain perception is there or not, or apply some hot or cold object to see the temperature sensations are present or not. So indirectly or quickly, the doctor is able to assess the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system, which is being intact or not, and thereby he or she can come to a diagnosis. Okay, so all this knowledge of anatomy and physiology of nervous, muscular and skeletal system is really critical in actually deciding and caring for the patient and designing the hospital. Okay, so let me summarize now. The nervous system controls the actions. So it's a control. This is like a remote control. The brain has all the remote control. Like you are able to pluck that apple which is looking there from the tree, or you just don't do it. All this is under the control of the nervous system. Okay, if you want to take an action, again the nervous system needs to give you that information, give the stimulus to the required muscles and the bones, which comes into action. Okay, then the muscular system is the system which actually performs the movement. The brain controls and the muscular system performs the movement. The skeletal system provides the structure, the base on which the muscles can build upon and pull it or push it away, right? And together it ensures coordinated human functions, thereby the system works. That's it. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening.